Her heart thudded methodically against her ribcage, each beat echoing the weight of the moment, a high-stakes chess game, every piece in jeopardy. She tightened her grip on the handgun tucked at her side, feeling the cool metal against her palm. She breathed in deeply, composing herself, the scent of rust and aged wood filling her lungs. "Enzo, we're outnumbered," she said, her voice a low murmur laced with a hint of frustration. She glanced left and found him, the enigmatic light of resolve flickering in his deep gaze. "Always outnumbered in battles like this, Tonja. But it's about strategy, not just fists," Enzo replied, an easy smile touching his lips, though tension throbbed beneath the surface. His body angled toward hers, the seriousness in his posture betraying his words. The faint noise of footsteps echoed through the warehouse, an ominous reminder that the syndicate's enforcers were closing in. Shadows flickered, and they could already feel the prickle of eyes scrutinizing them. "Right," she mused, her jaw clenched. "Which strategy do you suggest? Because so far, hope isn't showing up on the battlefield." "Hope is always the first casualty of war." His voice dropped an octave, thick with meaning. "But if we use the darkness to our advantage?" He trailed off, letting the words hang like smoke in the air. Tonja turned her head just slightly, catching the spark of something behind his words. It was more than just tactics. It was mutual understanding, a shared practice of expectation. Their eyes locked for a fleeting instant, charged with an unspoken tension, an intimacy forged in turmoil and purpose, deeper than the malice surrounding them. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the tension, the enforcers pouring in like a tide of chaos. Enzo's instincts kicked in. He grabbed her wrist, leading her swiftly backward behind a crumbled pillar. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, igniting her senses. She could hear the faint sound of footsteps shifting around with intentions both lethal and anxious. "Stay close," Enzo whispered, but not out of fear. There was confidence in his voice. Together they could tackle anything, she thought, even as anxiety bubbled in her stomach. The proximity of their bodies spurred the awareness of warmth radiating from him, a stark contrast against the coolness of the place enclosing them. Enzo edged forward, peering around the remnant of the old wall. "Looks like they're shifting in pairs. We'll have to be quick and decisive." "Or be bait," she countered, her mind racing through every possible scenario. After all, she had become accustomed to thinking 2 steps ahead. He glanced back at her, an eyebrow raised in playful challenge. "You're not giving yourself enough credit, Coleman. You have to trust your instincts." Trust. The word resonated between them, sending jolts of energy through her. It held weight more than just partnership and professionalism, a bond forged in secrecy and survival. She nodded, a silent agreement echoing in the trembling silence. They could play this like chess, one calculated move at a time. With a deep breath, Tonja sprang into action. She dashed forward as Enzo distracted the nearest enforcer with a sharp jab that sent him staggering back. The sleek movement of her body was like a lethal dance, her strength unfurling gracefully yet powerfully. She disarmed another attacker with a swift kick, using the momentum to pivot towards the next target. The fight erupted into fierce chaos, bodies colliding, echoes of shouts reverberating through the dilapidated walls. Enzo's swift movements mirrored her own. Each position they took in the struggle told a story of connection, of silent communication. Here in the fray, both felt a release, a unity built by the urgency of the moment. The reckoning was not just against their foes, but against themselves, an intimate clash of loyalty and survival. "Watch the left," he shouted, his warning a pivotal moment that saved her from taking a hit. The awareness of his voice familiar, trusting wrapped around her like a lifeline. "Got it," she shot back, delivering a powerful blow that felled yet another adversary. But soon it was over, leaving behind an eerie silence. In the aftermath, their breaths mingled in the still air, adrenaline pooling between them. Both warriors, now momentarily exposed, shared a glance layered with everything unspoken. The uncertainty of the moment, the danger that still lingered, and the unshakable bond that had formed through the turmoil. "Do you think they're done for?" Tonja asked, half breathless, half taunting. "Only until the next game begins," Enzo replied, a confident grin breaking through the gravity of the situation. "And when will that be?" "In this line of work," he said, a glint of mischief in his eye, "I'd say shortly." As they both straightened, muscles still taut from the brawl, Tanja allowed a fleeting smile to touch her lips, a brief moment of solace between the storms of their lives. Scene 63. Difficult choices. The darkness outside their apartment flickered with occasional flashes of lightning, illuminating the shifting storm clouds. The air felt electric, charged with an intensity that matched the tumult brewing inside Tanja. She stood in the kitchen, the smell of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air, a contrast to the tension that gripped the room. Thunder rumbled in the distance, reverberating off the walls like the turmoil in her heart, a reminder of the choices looming in front of her. Enzo leaned casually against the doorframe, arms crossed, his brow furrowed with concern. Tanja glanced at him, catching the unguarded moment where his regal features mirrored her own conflict. His dark eyes flickered with a hesitant light, as if he feared what she might say next. "Tanja," he began, his voice low and careful, "you can't keep doing this alone. You need to let me in." The kettle began to whistle, its shrill sound cutting through the heat of the moment. She closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, gathering the thousand thoughts spiraling in her mind. "Every bone in my body tells me to dig deeper, to uncover the truth behind the syndicate," she replied, pouring the steaming liquid into her cup. The heat radiated through the porcelain, grounding her momentarily against the storm both outside and within. Enzo stepped further into the room, the soft light washing over his features and cooling the storm in her chest. "And what if the truth is something we aren't ready to face? What if it risks everything we've worked for?" There was an edge to his voice, an unspoken weight, the remnants of his own hidden struggles. Tanja turned toward him, resting against the countertop, the cool stone contrasting sharply with the warmth bubbling in her thoughts. "You know what we're up against. I can't just stand by while lives linger in the balance." "Then stop hiding behind this facade of strength," he urged gently, stepping closer. "We're partners. We deserve to share the burden, not bear it alone." As their eyes locked, something shifted. The air thickened, charged with the weight of their unexpressed feelings. Out of instinct, she reached out, brushing her fingers against his forearm in a moment of vulnerability. The warmth of his skin against hers sent an unexpected shiver through her, mingling admiration and unease. Before she could respond, a crack of thunder reverberated, shaking the foundations of their sanctuary. In that moment, she felt an overwhelming urge to reveal everything, stripping away her careful emotional armor. "I'm scared, Enzo, scared of what my powers can do, scared of what the truth might unearth." He looked down at their hands, unflinching. "Then let me help you navigate through it. We can't become something more if you keep pushing me away." "More?" she echoed, the word dancing between them like the flicker of lightning outside. "You think this is about us?" The coffee in her cup sloshed as she set it down, frustration bubbling forth. "How can we think of more when shadows lurk behind us?" A brief silence fell, filled only by the drumming of rain against the window, creating a cocoon of intimacy around them. His gaze searched hers, peeling back the layers of her defenses. "Maybe it should be about us," he said, softness in his tone. "Maybe that's the only way we triumph, together." For a heartbeat, the walls of hesitation began to crumble. They drifted closer, the distance between them reduced to a whisper of air. She could see the earnestness in his eyes, the unspoken promise of trust, of partnership. The world outside faded, replaced by the rhythm of their breaths synchronizing, a dance slow and intimate. Before her resolve could break further, she straightened. "But this isn't just about us, Enzo. If I share my burden, what does that mean for you?" The intensity of the storm crescendoed, echoing her own conflicted heart. "It means we open the door, together. We face the dangers that lie ahead, whatever they might be." With a measured breath, she nodded slightly, feeling the gust of night envelop them. Torn between fear and desire, she realized the choice she faced wasn't solely her own. Then let's face it, together. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, the first semblance of harmony began to brew amidst the chaos. A fragile promise amidst the shadows looming ever closer. Scene 64, Desperate Measures. Heavy clouds loomed over the city, their menace mirrored in Tonja Coleman's heart. Rain dribbled steadily from the eaves of the abandoned warehouse, pooling in muddy puddles that reflected the erratic flicker of distant lightning. Her breath quickened, each inhale filled with the scent of damp earth and rusted metal, heightening the sense of urgency that surged within her. Enzo was in there, cornered by the very crime syndicate they'd been investigating, and time was slipping through her fingers like that rain. Rushing through the shadowy entrance, her athletic form moved with purpose, the thump of her shoes swallowed by the dilapidated space around her. She scanned the room, her psychic energy pulsating at the edge of her consciousness, readying itself to guide her. She felt the familiar prick of tension dance between her ribs. It was unsettling, yet grounding. She needed it now more than ever. "Enzo!" she shouted, her voice echoing against the concrete walls. No answer. A bead of cold sweat traced down her spine as she inched deeper into the dilapidated building, the sharp scent of gun oil mixing with the dampness. She could feel the vision closed in. She had to focus through the sweaty fog of paranoia enveloping her. With one touch, she would see what had happened here earlier. Suddenly, her vision blurred, memories flooding her mind's eye. A flash of Enzo, pinned against the wall, eyes fierce, but there was a flicker of fear. She gasped, pulling back. She knew she could reach him. He was close. With a set jaw, she pressed onward, mastering the fear gnawing at her gut. The hum of activity echoed in the distance, muffled voices laced with menace. Just beyond the next room, she could hear muffled threats and laughter, the kind that sent chills straight down her spine. Her heart pounded not merely out of fear, but of the fierce determination to save him, to confront whatever darkness lay ahead. As she slipped around a corner, she caught sight of Enzo, surrounded by three burly men, each cloaked in shadows, their faces obscured by the dim light. Even from afar, she could see the tension in his posture, his fists clenched. One of the men raised a gun, and her body reacted before her mind could process the danger. "Not today," she yelled, sprinting forward, heart thrumming in her chest. With a burst of energy, she charged through the doorway, her mind flickering with her own power. Utilizing her speed, she tackled the nearest thug, feeling the rush of adrenaline surge through her body. Her strength was formidable, a force of nature, as she sent him crashing to the ground. "Get down!" she exclaimed to Enzo as she ducked low, narrowly avoiding a fired bullet that whizzed past her ear. He dodged, rolling out of the way as she took out another attacker, her movements swift and fluid like a dancer. The rain outside intensified, drumming against the metal roof, each drop echoing the rising tension. This was their sanctuary, a place where chaos reigned, yet she felt a rush of clarity. "Tonja, you're back!" Enzo shouted, urgency edging his words. Just as he spoke, the last thug gripped at her wrist, yanking her to her feet. Enzo charged, pinning the man's arm with a brutal twist. "You okay?" She nodded, breathing rapidly, adrenaline through the roof. The heat of the moment wasn't just about the fight. It was about them. They were alive, together. As the last thug crumpled under the weight of their combined force, Tonja turned, and their eyes locked. In that fleeting moment, the chaos around them seemed to fade. Rain still fell with relentless fury, the thunder rolling softly in the backdrop of the transient silence. There was something undeniable between them, a thread woven by tension and unspoken feelings. "What do we do now?" she breathed, the moment stretching electric. "Now, we get you out of here," he replied, not breaking their gaze. The air thickened, charged with unacknowledged desire as they stepped closer. A dangerous twist of fate hovered over them, and there, in the faint light, love stood on the edge of their shared peril, everything unconfessed yet palpable. Just as Tonja leaned in, heart racing in a harmony with the tremors of the storm, the unpredictability of their lives ignited a crescendo of reckless abandon. A thunderclap echoed overhead, drowning out everything as their lips met, igniting a fire that had long been simmering below the surface. The kiss was brief yet heartfelt, an unguarded moment of warmth amidst the chaos, fading to black as the rain continued to fall. "Let's get moving," Tonja whispered, determination returning as she pulled back, ready once more to face whatever darkness awaited them. Scene 65. As the dust settles. The afternoon sun drenched the room in golden light, illuminating the dust motes that danced lazily in the air. Tonja Coleman sat on the edge of the sturdy oak desk in the narrow office they shared, feeling the familiar weight of her psychic burden. Her fingers traced the worn wood, recalling battles fought in this very space, words traded like currency. Today felt heavier, a silence enveloping the air like a thick fog, taunting her with uncertainties. Enzo Arnaud stood by the window, arms crossed, blocking out the world, while his dark silhouette framed the vibrant backdrop. He stared at the bustling street below, activity buzzing like a hive of muted chaos, completely at odds with the stillness that rested between them. The air was electric yet poised, both within and beyond their small sanctuary. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Tonja asked, breaking the tranquil silence, her voice barely rising above a whisper. It was a loaded question, a chasm of doubt laying bare the fissures forming between their hearts. His gaze remained fixed outside, but there was a shift in the set of his shoulders. "I don't know, Tonja. What if this fake engagement puts us in more danger?" Enzo finally turned to face her, intensity radiating from his dark eyes, their depth a reflection of the turmoil brewed within. "Isn't it already dangerous? We're dealing with a crime syndicate." She leaned forward, bracing her palms on the desk, her pulse quickening. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about the lives at stake." "Sometimes I wonder if you care more about the case than about us," he pressed, his tone edged with a sharpness that cut through the thick air like the flick of a knife. "Enzo." Her breath caught, the weight of his accusation settling upon her like a sudden winter chill. She stood, smoothing her fitted blazer, trying to bridge the growing gap. "You know that's not true. You're not just my partner. You're my friend." His lips pressed together in a thin line, a barrier formed by unspoken fears. She could feel it, the unacknowledged tension between them, simmering beneath layers of friendship and professional camaraderie. "I have so many thoughts swirling around," he confessed, vulnerability slipping into the cracks of his tough exterior. "And sometimes I can't help but doubt." As if to check the emotion rising in her chest, Tonja inhaled deeply, the scent of old paper and ink tugging at memories of countless hours spent poring over cases together. She approached him slowly, her steps measured in a moment that felt suspended, like a tableau waiting for its next act. "I don't want to doubt us, Enzo. It's just that my abilities, this life, it complicates everything." She reached out, brushing his wrist lightly with her fingers, and felt the zing of his skin alive, aware. "But I know what's real. You're real." His gaze softened, and for a heartbeat, the world outside faded. The silence stretched taut between them, charging the air with an unspeakable connection that both thrilled and terrified. "I know how you see things, Tonja," he murmured, his voice a low rumble. "But sometimes I need you to see me." The vulnerability hung heavy in the air, and Tonja felt the tug of something profound between them, a potential bared in the flicker of their shared breath. She dared to step closer, her pulse racing as the space between them shrank into mere inches. "Then look," Tonja said, meeting his gaze with a steady strength. "Look beyond the case. I'm here. We're in this together." In that moment, the world outside might as well have been miles away, the chaos of their investigation silenced by the weight of understanding. Enzo leaned in, brushing his lips against her forehead, a gentle, grounding gesture, perhaps overlaid with the hints of something more, something intimate. "Tonja." The sound of rushing footsteps echoed from the hallway outside, crashing back through their shared moment as abruptly as thunder splitting the sky. Both turned in unison, the intensity dissipating into adrenaline-fueled alertness. "What now?" Enzo snapped, his demeanor instantly steel-like, shifting into the role of the protective partner. Tonja's heart raced anew, feeling the thrill of action summon her energy, but beneath it lay the heat of unspoken words. "Let's find out," she replied, a wry smile slowly forming, fueling her resolve. As they prepared to charge back into the fray, the dust settled, as a reminder of both what was at stake and what lingered unacknowledged, their hearts racing in sync with the urgency of the moment. The city outside beckoned, but it was the complexities within that would haunt them long after they left the office behind. Scene 66, echoes of the past. The brisk air of the late afternoon felt like a distant memory, as Tonja Coleman leaned against the balcony railing of her apartment, looking out over the glistening skyline of D.C. Each breath was a sharp reminder that the past lurked just beneath the surface, waiting for a moment to creep back into her life. The horizon seemed to mirror her turbulent emotions, the sunset painting the sky in hues of orange and purple that fought for dominance. creating a scene both beautiful and chaotic. She could see the reflection of her own gaze in the glass, searching for clarity amidst the swirling doubts that had invaded her mind. As she turned to head back inside, the door swung open abruptly, revealing Enzo Arnaud, his face a mix of concern and determination. His somber demeanor made her heart skip a beat, an emblem of the stakes they faced together. "Are you ready for tonight? The briefing starts soon." "I need a minute," she replied, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the cool breeze still tugging at her to stay lost in thought. There was a tinge of disquiet in her voice, a silence laden with hesitation. "More time to think about your parents or about the case?" He stepped closer, his voice low, refusing to let her retreat into her thoughts. His presence was comforting yet electrifying, as if he could conjure answers from the air between them. "It's not just," she began but faltered, the shadows of her past coiling around her words. "It's everything, Enzo." Her eyes cast down, spotting the empty whiskey glass on the table, remnants of a once hopeful drink. His breath caught momentarily, sensing the weight of the world she carried. "You're not just another case, Tonja. You know that. You think because we're tangled up in this phony engagement, there's nothing real here?" She raised her gaze to him, a hint of challenge igniting between them. He knew her well enough to understand that phrase hid layers of meaning. "Sometimes the lines blur," he said, crossing his arms, cocking his head slightly, the candlelight flickering behind him. "You just need to be sure of what you want." The stillness met their escalating intensity, as if time collapsed around them. Outside, the sounds of the city dulled, enveloping them in a cocoon of focus. The air between them surged with an unspoken connection, one that satisfied a deeper longing while instigating uncertainty. With a sudden urgency, she closed the gap, her heartbeat steadying as she focused on the shine in his dark eyes. "Do you ever wonder about how our lives are entwined with what we left behind?" "Every day," he confessed, stepping closer until the warmth of their bodies radiated in the quiet, palpable, and charged. "But I also believe we're reshaping our futures." His voice dropped to a whisper, the moment stretching with potential. Unintentional sparks ignited as their hands brushed against one another, an electric jolt drawing invisible lines between them. She could feel the heat, the near connection simmering dangerously close to an edge they both skirted. "There are ghosts, Enzo. I can hear them calling, telling me I'm not enough to fight this." "Then let's silence them," he suggested, leaning in slightly, lowering his voice to where only they could hear. "Together." "What does together look like for us?" The question was tentative, loaded with expectations she hadn't wanted to voice. The world seemed to dissolve into the low hum of their breath, where noise outside faded into the background. Finger to finger, they danced on the brink of something profound, yet unformed. "It looks like trust, Tonja," he murmured, his eyes fixed on hers, a challenge and promise mixed in that singular gaze. "I want to believe that," she said quietly, the knot in her throat tight. "But this facade, what happens when it's stripped away?" "Then we deal with whatever that is. We fight," he stated with unwavering resolve, leaning in the smallest measure, the pinch of their distance heavier than tangible barriers. The space echoed with their racing hearts, with urgency and uncontained tenderness simmering beneath the surface. A moment too surreal melded into reality as they stood on the cusp of chance, giving way to fear, longing, commitment. The sky outside darkened, shadows painting their silhouettes against the wall beneath flickering candlelight. "Let the ghosts come," Tonja breathed, emboldened by his calm. "They can't take us down if we face them together." And as he stepped into her space fully, the possibility of an unexpected union blossomed like the charged red sun slipping from view, leaving in its wake a serenity that hinted at newly realized connections and fierce understanding, a prologue to a deeper story waiting to unfold. Scene 67, a confrontation of souls. The late evening sun spilled through the large bay windows of the rented loft, casting long golden fingers across the polished wooden floor. The air was thick with the scent of burnt coffee and something faintly sweet. Tonja had left a half-finished slice of chocolate cake lying on the counter, its remnants an indulgent reminder of the chaos they now faced. Outside, the bustling sounds of the city seemed distant, muffled by the thick glass, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves from the potted plants that dotted the corners. The calm within the loft felt unnatural, as though it held its breath, waiting. Tonja leaned against the kitchen island, arms crossed protectively over her chest as she watched Enzo pace. His shadow danced against the wall, each step resonating with the tension that crackled between them. He ran a hand through his dark hair, brow furrowed, deep in thought. The air throbbed with unspoken words, an invisible connection pulling them closer, even as the weight of their veiled truths pressed down on both of them. "Did you find anything at the scene?" she asked, breaking the silence, her voice betraying a hint of apprehension. Enzo paused mid-pace, his gaze darting to the window as if searching for answers in the fading light. Nothing concrete, just more questions. He turned to face her, eyes intense and serious. "But I'm worried, Tonja. This whole thing, it's deeper than we thought. The crime syndicate is onto us." "I know," she admitted, pushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture felt trivial given the enormity of their situation, but it grounded them momentarily. "We're not just risking our jobs here, it's our lives." "We won't let that happen," he replied, stepping closer, the distance between them tightening. Something flickered in his expression, confusion, fear, maybe even desperation. "But I can't shake this feeling like we're walking into a trap." Tonja sensed the vulnerability layered beneath his bravado, the silent battle he fought on a daily basis. "You don't have to bear this alone, Enzo," she said softly, the earnestness in her tone surprising even herself. "You can talk to me." "I can't just put everything out there like that," he replied, frustration cracking in his voice. "I don't want to drag you into my mess. I already have enough on my plate without. Without what?" she pressed, feeling a swell of compassion amidst the electric atmosphere. "Without fearing what might happen to me? We're in this together, remember?" He took a deep breath, and for a moment the world outside faded away completely. Enzo dropped his gaze, the weight of his confession hanging heavily between them. "I'm being blackmailed," he finally whispered, the admission raw and broken. "They've got dirt on me, Tonja, things I thought I could outrun." Shock rippled through her. "What do you mean? What kind of things?" "Things from my past. Mistakes I made that haunt me," he continued, eyes still cast downward. "They want information. If I don't adhere to their demands, they'll expose everything our investigation. It could ruin everything." "I won't let them do that," she vowed, stepping closer, the warmth of her intent reaching out to him. "We'll find a way to tackle this, together. You're not alone in this fight, Enzo." He finally met her gaze, the vulnerability in his eyes mingled with gratitude. "It feels different, trying to keep you safe while I'm this tangled mess." "Maybe embrace the mess," she suggested, a subtle smile breaking through the heaviness. "We're both a little broken, aren't we? But that doesn't make us any less powerful." His lips quirked up in response, the laughter that danced in the corners of his mouth a relief amidst the chaos. "Powerful, huh? I'll take it." Their eyes locked, a charged moment passing silently between them. Tonja felt her heart race, the gravity of their shared struggles forging a connection deeper than mere partnership. As the last light of day slipped beneath the horizon, enveloping them in twilight, Tonja took a step back, breaking the spell that had bound them for those fleeting seconds. "You should rest. We have work to do tomorrow," she said, masking the tremor in her voice, though her heart still trembled in echo of their moment. Enzo nodded, yet lingered a moment longer, uncertainty painting his features. "Yeah, together," he echoed, a promise lingering in the air, the bond between them ever more certain, yet infinitely complex. Scene 68, weaving threads. The dawn light filtered through the office blinds, painting stripes of gold and silver across the cluttered desk, where reports and photographs connected to the crime syndicate sprawled like a chaotic synapse. Tonja Coleman leaned against the wall, her arms crossed, tapping her fingers on her bicep as she studied the evidence carefully. Somewhere amidst the chaos lay the threads linking the murders to the enigmatic figure at the helm of the syndicate. She exhaled slowly, a hint of frustration settling in her gut. While the calm of the morning cloaked the urgency of the day ahead, her mind swirled with the remnants of half-formed thoughts. Everything was correlated, yet it felt tantalizingly out of reach. Detective work was a dance on the precipice of clarity and confusion. The line between those who seek justice and those who evade it had become painfully blurred. Enzo's voice, warm, introspective, and always just a shade of mischievous, broke the silence. "Still caught up in that labyrinth, aren't you?" Enzo said, leaning against the doorframe, a lean silhouette with an intrinsic charm that had a way of ensnaring her focus. His eyes glimmered, sparkled with that signature confidence that set her heartbeat to a delicious rhythm. "You could say that," Tonja replied, instantly aware of the crack in her tough exterior. She turned to face him fully, feeling the air shift as he stepped closer. "I'm trying to make sense of our leads." Her voice wavered slightly, a vulnerability she rarely showed to anyone. She hated how he seemed to see straight through her strong facade. Enzo's gaze lingered, tracing the contours of her face with a mix of admiration and intensity. "You know, just because we have a mystery doesn't mean we can't also focus on the what?" she interrupted, feigning annoyance to mask the heated flutter in her chest. "The romance?" She took a step back, but the teasing glimmer in his eyes made it hard to dismiss the warmth pulsing just beneath her skin. "Perhaps." He stepped forward, that infuriating smirk still rooted on his lips. "But I was thinking more along the lines of a break. You look like you could use one." Tonja held his gaze for a prolonged moment, the tension unexpectedly tangible, creating an electric charge in the air around them. The distance of mere inches felt monumental, the unspoken words pressing her to confront the emotional wall between them. Her pulse quickened, a rush of adrenaline that felt almost primal. "Enzo." She shifted, her tone serious now, drawing in a breath laden with overwhelming uncertainty. "We can't afford distractions. Not now." He tilted his head slightly, the smirk shifting into a softer expression that made her heart race even more. "Don't you think I'd understand that? I've been in your shoes, Tonja. I won't let you lose yourself in." "Lose myself?" she echoed, voice wavering at the edge of something more profound. "You think I'm losing it just because I'm trying to focus?" They stood locked in that moment of charged silence, only the faint hum of the office air conditioning filling the void between them. She could feel the pull of his essence, the heat radiating from his body, the vibrant confidence that seemed effortless. A clenched jaw, then a deep breath. "Maybe what we need is a little clarity," Enzo said, moving even closer until the world outside felt like a distant hum. The warmth of his body radiated against her skin, the intimate proximity sparking a deeper need within her. "We've been playing pretend for too long. It doesn't have to be just a job." And just like that, the fragile barrier they had constructed began to shatter under the weight of unvoiced admissions. Tonja's heart raced. With the world outside receding, it was just them, a universe spiraling between the grasp of seriousness and unrepentant longing. As the gravity of his earlier words echoed in her mind, she found herself suspended in that moment, the intensity unfolding like an intricately woven tapestry. Then it happened. Enzo had closed the gap, his hand curling gently around the back of her neck, drawing her toward him. The connection was electric, igniting the myriad sensations she had tried to ignore. Their eyes locked, and in that gaze, she saw a hint of everything unsaid: need, companionship, urgency. Their lips met in a soft but palpable collision, an exploration, a battle of hesitance and desire merging into one. Time seemed to dissolve, the kiss light yet basking in fervor. It wrapped around them like the first rush of spring. She felt the stirring connection deepen, yet it danced away, leaving her breathless in the wake. And just as the world began to fade into clarity, sanity swept back in, and she pulled away breathlessly. Memories of unsolved mysteries returning to mash against the wall of uncharted territory. "Maybe you're right," she said breathlessly, her heart retuning to its regular cadence, conflicted yet undeniably tethered to him. "But let's keep our heads on straight." Enzo stepped back, a knowing smile teasing his lips. Always the detective, even in matters of the heart. Tonja rolled her eyes but couldn't resist the smile budding outward, even as the darkness loomed closer. Their unspoken partnership now held a new tension. Together, they would press deeper into their cases, no matter what fear hovered over them. They would walk toward danger, together. And as they returned their focus to the sprawling paperwork before them, the tension lingered, simmering just below the surface. A new thread intertwined in the labyrinth, they had yet to untangle. Scene 69. The final countdown. The dim light of the warehouse flickered overhead, shadows dancing across the concrete floor. Tonja Coleman crouched behind a stack of crates, her heartbeat drumming in her ears, urgency coursing through her veins. She could almost taste the metal tang of adrenaline on her tongue. The looming confrontation with the syndicate hung over her like a storm cloud, filling the air with electric tension. "Enzo, we need to move," she whispered, her voice barely carrying through the charged atmosphere. Enzo Arnaud glanced up from his tactical tablet, the soft glow illuminating his rugged features. "Just a few more minutes. I'm tracking their last signal." His jaw clenched, betraying the calm facade he bore. The softness between them flickered like the overhead light. Tonja cast a sidelong glance at him, her insides tightening. He was focused, intent on the mission. Yet every time their eyes met, a fire ignited, an awareness pushing against the lines of their pretending engagement. She shook her head slightly, trying to shake the thoughts sidestepping around her mind. Now wasn't the time. "I get that," she sighed, inhaling deeply, the scent of dust and motor oil enveloping her, grounding her away from the uncertainty rising beneath her skin. "But if we don't get ahead of this, we won't get a second chance." A faint smile tugged at the corners of Enzo's lips, a moment of levity that felt fragile. "You sound like my partner. Oh wait, that's exactly who you are." He turned fully, the light catching the intensity in his hazel eyes. "Enzo," she warned, though her heart raced at the lightness he brought. "Focus." Their playful banter sank into the charged stillness. She took a step closer, drawn by some invisible tether. "You know what'll happen if we don't act," she pressed. Tonja could almost see the shadows lurking beyond the periphery of her vision, the intimidating force they were about to confront. "Don't remind me," he murmured, his voice low and firm. The tension that filled the air wasn't just tactical, it was palpable, like an electric current transmitting unspoken feelings. Tonja drew in a breath, her heart drumming a different rhythm. "Do you trust me?" "Always," he replied with a nod, the sincerity in his tone grounding her. In that moment, Tonja reached out, her fingertips brushing against his forearm, a connection that sent a shiver through her. She locked eyes with him, feeling the weight of the world pressing against them, pressing tightly enough that it blurred the lines of their friendship. The world around them faded, law enforcement, the syndicate, their secrets, all distantly irrelevant. "Let's make this count," she whispered, her voice tightening with urgency. The moment stretched, and a flicker of something deeper crackled between them, an intimacy forged in the fires of their battles. "Together," Enzo affirmed softly, leaning closer. His breath mingled with hers, charged, heady. The world shrank away until it was just the two of them, a fragile bubble surrounding their shared intensity. "Right," Tonja whispered, forcing herself to break the spell, feeling a familiar determination rise within. "Let's go take down some criminals." Before she could move, Enzo's hand closed around hers, firm yet reassuring. "No turning back after this. I wouldn't want it any other way." Her eyes held his, and in the glimmer of that shared moment, there lingered a promise, a commitment that thumped through her in time with her heart, ignited by the impending struggle that awaited them. They both turned, adrenaline surging, hearts pounding in unison. In the distance, the sound of shuffling feet echoed ominously, scrambling all their complicated emotions back into the depths of their minds. The pieces were in place, and for all the terrors the night might hold, one thing was clear. They were no longer just partners navigating dangerous waters. They were a team prepared to face whatever darkness awaited them. "On three," Enzo said, his voice steady. Tonja nodded, drawing one final breath to steel herself. "Three," she echoed, the tension crackling like static in the air around them. The impending storm awaited just beyond the crates, and together they would face it head-on. Scene 70, the masquerade. The grand hall of the Regency Hotel buzzed with energy, a symphony of laughter and murmurs masking the tension woven into the velvet fabric of the evening. Crystal chandeliers dripped with light, casting a soft glow that danced across the ornately decorated masks of the attendees. Tonja Coleman stepped inside, her tall, athletic figure accentuated by the sleek lines of her emerald gown, the fabric shimmering like a rare gemstone. She felt the weight of the evening's secrecy pressing down on her, eclipsed only by the thrill of the unpredictable night ahead. Enzo Arnaud, beside her, wore a black mask that lent his typically charismatic demeanor a mysterious edge. He leaned in closer, the warmth of his breath tickling her ear. "Remember, we're here for information, not for the drama," he teased, his eyes flicking away to scan the crowd. "Easier said than done when this feels more like a circus." Tonja replied, her own tension barely masked by her playful tone. She tried to focus on the task at hand, yet felt the magnetic pull of Enzo's presence. "Let's separate and reconvene," she suggested, moving just a bit closer than was necessary, their skin nearly brushing. That small spark was enough to set her heart racing. Divide and conquer? Enzo grinned, yet his eyes belied concern. As he stepped back, she inadvertently felt the distance felt too far. "Be careful." Before she could respond, he slipped away into the throng, leaving her alone in the swirling sea of silk and velvet. Tonja took a deliberate breath, trying to quell the sense of foreboding tightening in her chest. Around her, laughter broke like waves against a rocky shore. A group of wealthy elites gathered in hushed, conspiratorial tones, their conversations punctuated by the clinking of champagne glasses. She glanced at a trio of men clad in sharp suits, their voices too low, their eyes scanning the room like hawks. Tonja pressed herself against the nearby wall, straining to hear snippets. "Higher up in the syndicate. Dangerous. Must act tonight." The words snaked through the laughter, sinking into Tonja's consciousness, igniting her instincts. The mention of a dangerous presence sent a shiver down her spine, a visceral reminder of the stakes that lay ahead. As she collected her thoughts, the ebullient energy of the masquerade veered towards chaos. A woman nearly toppled over, laughter escaping her lips, a vibrant red mask slipping slightly askew. "Excuse me," she gasped, waving a hand. Tonja steadied her, offering a calm smile. "Careful, you don't want to draw attention." "Attention," the woman chuckled, swaying. "The whole night is about attention." Another wave of laughter erupted from the crowd, and Tonja couldn't help but smile at the absurdity, for a moment forgetting the gravity of her mission. But then there he was, Enzo, making his way back through the swirl of gowns and tuxedos. He looked intense, almost drawn, tension radiating from his stance. The smile that had sparked between them earlier faltered as she noticed a shadow of worry etched on his features. "What's wrong?" she asked, stepping forward, concern coloring her voice. "A problem," he said quietly, leaning close so only she could hear. "I overheard something about a meeting, tonight. They're planning something big." Tanja's heart quickened, shifting thoughts from mundanity to danger. "We need to stop them." Her voice was firm, igniting the fire of her resolve. "Not so fast." Enzo raised a hand, earnest caution etching his brow. "If this goes sideways, it could be the end of both our covers and potentially our lives. We need proof before we act." A surge of frustration bubbled within Tonja as she grappled with the choice between action and restraint. "We can't just sit around polishing our masks, Enzo. People are in danger." His jaw tightened, eyes narrowing. "And what if you're wrong?" Their argument escalated, tension thick as the scents of aged wood and perfumed gowns swirled around them. "I can't just wait," she hissed, her voice barely contained. "I'm not going to play princess while they plot behind closed doors." Enzo took a step closer, lowering his voice to a near whisper laced with challenge. "Then what are you suggesting? A full-scale attack on a mob syndicate at a high society masquerade? Think, Tonja." Silence hung heavy between them, charged with a blend of passion and understanding. The vulnerable edge of emotion cracked open something deeper. Tonja softened, her voice dropping. "I just want to protect people, Enzo. It's why I fight." A flicker of understanding crossed his expression, the storm abating just a little. "I know you do. Just trust in our instincts. We'll get there. We always do." "Together?" she asked, locking her gaze with his, throwing aside the whirlwind around them for a fleeting moment of intimate clarity. "Always together," he affirmed, the weight of those words settling around them, yet uncertainty lingered in the air. The crowd buzzed on, oblivious to the conflict simmering beneath the surface. The night was just beginning, and so too were the revelations that awaited them both. As they clasped hands, sensing the pulse of the evening deepening with intrigue, Tonja felt the unspoken promise linger of danger, of secrets, of everything that would come next. Scene 71. Facing the truth. Tonja Coleman stood with her back to the mirror in the cramped dressing room, a swirl of muted colors and soft fabrics surrounding her. The masquerade ball was just hours away, and the air was tinged with the scent of jasmine and freshly polished wood. It felt oddly synchronic, like the joy brushed against her skin held a deeper truth that she couldn't quite grasp. She pushed her hair away from her neck, catching a glimpse of the dramatic mask resting on the table. It sparkled under the dim lighting, an illusion perfect for their plan, but heavy with the shadows of deception. The clicking of heels echoed outside her door, followed by the familiar, low murmur of Enzo's voice. "Tonja, are you ready?" Enzo called, a hint of concern seeping through his casual tone. "Almost, just trying to find the right shoes," she replied, her voice slightly brighter than she felt. She rifled through the options laid out before her, all shades of metallic that glinted in the low light. The shoes were critical, an embrace of polished perfection to match her stunning crimson gown. The door creaked open, and Enzo stepped in, his gaze falling upon her. The playful banter they usually found in moments like this felt diminished, cocooned in an unspoken tension. He was dressed impeccably, a sleek navy suit accentuating his tall frame, but the softness in his eyes betrayed an edge of worry. "Do you think it matters?" he asked, crossing his arms, drawing attention to the muscles beneath his fitted blazer. "The shoes, I mean?" Tonja faltered, the air thickening as she turned to face him. "Every detail matters, Enzo. We can't let anything slip." He stepped closer, the scent of sandalwood enveloping her. "But it's not just about the masquerade, is it? It never is with you," he said, his tone sharp yet quiet. There was a flicker of something in his gaze that stirred her, a mix of frustration and unacknowledged yearning. "You think I enjoy this facade?" she shot back, her heart racing as her pulse traveled from her chest to her fingertips. "I'm trying to maintain control, to keep us safe." "I know that," Enzo said, running a hand through his hair with a mix of exasperation and vulnerability that she rarely witnessed. "But it feels like every revelation pushes us further apart instead of bringing us together." The silence lingered as if the walls were holding their breath. Tonja's breath hitched. It was a truth spoken amidst the clamor of their chaotic lives, a fear lurking just beneath the surface. "Are you still struggling with?" she began, but quickly halted as the words threatened to unravel the delicate fabric of their relationship. "My powers?" "Yes," he finally admitted, a tenor of frustration spilling forth. "You see things I can't understand. How do you expect me to be okay with that?" "I never asked you to be okay with it," she snapped, the weight of their shared burden tightening like a noose around her heart. You never let me in, Enzo. You act as if you're protecting me from the truth, but you're the one hiding." His eyes blazed for a brief moment, a flicker of anger mixed with hurt. "This isn't just about me, Tonja. There's a cost to what we're doing, which we can't ignore. Then let's face that cost together." Her voice rose, cracking under the strain of blended emotions that collided in the air like an electrical storm. Enzo took a measured step back, breathing heavily, the silence thickening once more as their heated breaths mingled. She could see the spark of his passion beneath the armor he wore so closely, a mask of his own. I thought we had an agreement to keep this professional." His words came out choked with palpable weight despite their intended casualness. "And where has that gotten us?" she countered, leveling her gaze, locking onto his with the intensity of her resolve. With a sudden resolve, he stepped closer again, closing the invisible gap that had stretched painfully wide. "I don't know if I can keep pretending like it doesn't affect me. Like I don't care." Something shifted in the air between them, a cracking potential, as if the galaxy had aligned, pushing them closer than they had ever dared. Tonja breathed in the moment, the heady mix of vulnerability and unbridled truth igniting sparks of possibility. "Maybe the pretense has reached its limit," she whispered, the electricity dancing beyond mere words, currents twisting between their truths and desires. In the silence, their breaths synchronized, a shared understanding, lingering like the taste of fresh lemon on her tongue. "I don't want to lose you," he said softly, vulnerability melting the barriers they had erected. The world outside faded, leaving only the two of them, straddling the line between friendship and something unspoken. And for an instant, The masquerade felt less like a performance and more like an unveiling. "Then let's stop hiding," she murmured, stepping closer, drawn into the orbit of his gaze. A truce ignited between them, awakening the undercurrents they had long kept at bay. Scene 72. Chase through shadows. The moon hung low, an alabaster orb illuminating the streets of downtown Manhattan. Tonja Coleman's pulse raced, heart hammering against her chest as she ducked behind a massive bronze statue in a deserted plaza. Her mind raced 2 years of training, instincts honed and sharpened by psychic visions. The weight of her powers, both a blessing and a burden, tingled at her fingertips. "Just stick to the plan," Enzo's voice echoed in her memory. A moment before she could persuade herself to retreat a little longer, the unmistakable roar of an engine split the silence. The black SUV screeched around the corner, tires squealing like a banshee. As trained criminals jumped out, weapons gleaming in the streetlights, something primal surged within her. "Go," she whispered to herself, and with it, she transformed. She tapped into the power that coursed just beneath her skin. In a flash, Tonja burst from her hiding spot, a streak of motion and muscle. With buildings blurring past, she sprinted through the night, her feet barely touching the ground. The cold air whipped against her face as she deftly maneuvered through alleyways, darting past cafes and bars alive with laughter. The sweetness of dessert wafted in the breeze, colliding starkly with the acrid scent of fear filling her nostrils. "Tonja, behind you!" Enzo's voice crackled through her earpiece. Gaze fixed ahead, she felt the heat of the approaching assailants, adrenaline fueling her speed. A glance over her shoulder showed a figure, a man with a white vest, his intent as dangerous as it was clear.